Managers in line to being let go after the season.
This is Jim Rome, and we are your source for everything NFL. We are CBS Sports Radio.
The only way you can take CBS Sports Radio 1140 with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and listen to us anytime, anywhere. You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. The nation and the league arrive in Las Vegas in 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
All right, welcome. Good morning, everybody. You are listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 in Las Vegas. I'm here to tell you the doctor is in. Raiders fans are already fighting with one another, and the team is just 1-2. But you wouldn't know it by dudes on Twitter. The mob is restless after 2 straight losses as the Raiders travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts in a little less than 2 hours. Welcome back. Las Vegas' only all Raiders talk show, Silver and Black Today, coming to you from the Finlay Chevrolet studios at CBS Sports Radio, 1140 in a very windy Las Vegas. Hold on to your hats, folks. The future home of the Raiders. I'm your host, Scott Gobranson. Joining me are my co-hosts, Kelly Kreiner and Chaz Osborne.
Yes.
Gentlemen, how are you today?
Wonderful.
Are you wonderful?
I'm wonderful.
Like, I think of the word wonderful to describe how you are at a particular time, sort of like a word that our grandparents would use. Do you agree with that? Or is that like... And Kelly, you're only 40, so like that's a little bit, I think, past your age range.
1958 called. They want their word back.
I like George Carlin. I'm moderately neato. No? You don't like that one? George Carlin was a genius.
He was, but, talk about
he's
something
dead.
being old. Yeah.
All right. We have a lot to get to today. Real quick, let's take a look at what's on the docket for today's show and who you'll hear from. In our first hour, we have a great interview with Raiders All-Pro and College Football Hall of Famer Lincoln Kennedy. Kennedy pulls no punches when talking about the Raiders' early season struggles, and he'll tell us how you can keep local kids playing football. That's right, by supporting yet another great Raiders Foundation event here in Las Vegas, especially if you like to play a little bit of the poker. Ooh. We're going to bring that to you. In our second hour, Kevin Bowen from 107.5 The Fan in Indianapolis will join us live from Lucas Oil Stadium, and it'll help us preview the banged-up Colts ahead of this morning's game. We'll also ask a question. How concerned are you with the Raiders through 3 weeks? Have you pressed the panic button? Many of you have. The Twitter sphere shows us that. Some of you should maybe seek help. We're here to help you. Or should everyone just chill? We'll talk about the concerns with the team so far and how they can perhaps exercise some demons with a big road win at Indy today. And that's not exercise as in Pilates.
The demons.
That's right. That's more like the exorcist in that way. By the way, we ran a poll. Our senior NFL columnist, Mo Moten, wrote a piece yesterday saying that the Raiders season could go into a tailspin if they don't win today on the road. 86% of you agree in our poll on Twitter that, yes, they must win today. No said, chill, Mo. 14% of you, that is, said no, they don't. It's not that bad. The gang will also give an in-depth look at the keys to the game for today, how they can go into Lucas Oil Stadium and grab a win before heading off to London for the week to prepare for the Bears. We'll argue and discuss that and take your calls. By the way, you can call us, 702-889-5978. That's 702-889-5978. We'll close out the show with Kelly's Corner, our picks for today's Raiders versus Colts matchup, and our betting picks as well for the NFL. So we have all of that coming ahead as well. Any hints today, Kelly, on what your corner is going to be about? The tease, as we call it in the biz?
Let's just say the Thursday night game, once again, has kind of given me something to talk about.
Wow. So
And
not about
it may involve officiating once again.
But it's not about your extreme excitement over Jennifer Lopez and Shakira being the halftime entertainment for the Super Bowl?
No.
I
mean, let's
either,
be honest.
me either.
It's better than some of the other choices they've had.
Yeah.
Like you have the Super Bowl in Atlanta, and you come up. Was that Maroon 5?
Yep.
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
That's your choice for Atlanta?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
could have had Andre 3000 out there.
that's the thing, man. You get Outkast back together.
Right.
That's a massive Super Bowl event. Instead, you have Maroon 5.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's what I said. We were on the rotation on Thursday night, and I said it's not the Super Bowl halftime show to me is not a thing anymore, which is why they announced it so early. I think
it shouldn't be a thing. People are nobody's watching the Super Bowl for the halftime show.
Right.
You take time out of the game. You add, you're changing the game you fundamentally played for 5 months.
Right.
You add time to that halftime, and I mean it's pointless. Everybody's watching the Super Bowl. You're not getting a big bump because you have a halftime show.
Chaz, who would you have picked to be on the halftime show?
For this year?
Yes.
In Miami?
Yes.
I mean, you got a lot of great artists down in Miami. I'm with Kelly. I'm not the biggest halftime show guy. I switch it over to the Puppy Bowl.
My kids do. They love the Puppy Bowl.
I think they used to have the Lingerie Bowl back in the day.
I'm just mad on the Puppy Bowl last year. They blew a call where the dog dropped it right. They gave him the touchdown. It went all Deshaun Jackson and dropped the thing first and cost me my bet.
That's what his
I
corner's
was going
up.
to say you bet on the Puppy Bowl.
Yes, I did.
I knew that. I mean, there was no question that you had to bet on the Puppy Bowl. I just think that if you're going to have Shakira on the halftime show, because I do think Shakira, the ability how to move her midsection like she does is remarkable. And I think they should just have an ISO camera on her midsection. They don't even have to show the rest because it's like freaking nature.
Yeah, Gloria Stefan better pop out there before too long. Since it's in Miami, right?
It's in
Miami Sound
Miami.
Machine.
Well, and somebody mentioned Pitbull, who I dislike strongly from a musical standpoint, because they're Cuban. It's Miami, the whole deal. I know Jennifer Lopez is Puerto Rican, so I get it. But still, it's the Cuban flair in Miami is a bigger deal. So, but anyway, that's where. Did you guys watch? I got to ask you this question. Did you watch Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel? Not for Bryant Gumbel, but for Bernie Goldberg's interview with Richie Incognito. Did you guys watch that?
I watched some bits and pieces of it. Apparently, my HBO service, it's 2 weeks for Real Sports to come on there.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I have it through Amazon.
Oh,
and I went
it takes time to.
Yeah, I
delay.
went to watch it, and I'm like 2 weeks behind on Real Sports. So I'm like, why am I paying $14?
Yeah, really. Yeah, you know what? I watched it. It was pretty heavy. There was a lot of things we knew about Richie Incognito, but that was a little more insight to the path, the dark path he's going down with this mental. I commend Incognito for bringing mental health awareness to the forefront. And I don't condone the path that he went down, but that first press conference at training camp, I was there, and they were asking him the questions, and he owned up to it. And he talked about when he came into the league in 2005, there was zero talk about, the mental health problems, and concussions, and now the league has put more emphasis on helping players deal with it and starting the healing process. So
well, but here's my point with it too, and I don't have any problem with redemptive stories, right? And people coming back. In fact, last night I was watching college football. I watched the University of Nevada, Reno again just get throttled by Hawaii. It wasn't even a game.
Man.
And Ryan Leaf was doing color commentary, and he did a great job actually.
Yep.
And that was good to see. Here's a guy who was a complete mess and has hopefully turned his life around for the better, for good. But with Incognito, two things. One is there was no remorse about the quote-unquote bullying incident in Miami.
Right.
Now, I know sometimes things are reported and they're not always all factual, and the NFL did their investigation. But still, the evidence against him is so overwhelming. It's like you talked about him owning up, and he did, and I give him credit for that. But at the same time, in that interview, he came off to me, in that portion, it sounded a little bit like, what? How about just move past it and say, you know what, it was unfortunate.
Well, no,
and he did a little bit, but he refused to acknowledge of what he did there. And number two, for me, was that he admitted that he has not been diagnosed with any mental illness.
Right. Well, not bipolar anyway.
Well, but with
But
anything.
he's taking those 2 years off for mental health, to get help for it. And to his credit, he said that the investigator that came in for that already had a preconceived notion that he was guilty.
Well,
he
of
was
course
this
he's going
way.
to say that.
He was this sort of thing. But there's always two sides to every story. And I get what you're saying. I also see his side of it. Which side do you go down? It's interesting you talk about Ryan Leaf. After seeing all these bizarre and negative things with Incognito, the one thing about him, he's so well spoken. And I know he wanted to go into broadcasting, when his football career ended. But it'd be nice if he became a spokesperson for this mental health awareness and started helping others as well as helping himself. It's bigger than the game. It's bigger than he's a real person, and you want to see people get back on track. And you see where he's coming from in different things. And if he can get himself and help others, that'd be a great thing for him.
How about for you, Kelly? What'd you think of
The biggest thing for me.
cough
Excuse me.
button's right there.
I was looking for it. The biggest thing for me about the bullying stuff is bullying was the hot word at the time.
Yes.
Basically, the coaches, I believe, told Richie Incognito, hey, we've got to toughen this kid up. He's a little soft.
That's what he said,
That,
too. That's what Chad's
that
point,
happens in every locker room. It happens everywhere, but we were just at a time with all of this, bullying thing like that. So that got kind of pigeonholed in with that. I've never really had a problem with what happened in Miami with that. But it's just everything else. Right. And if he's got mental health issues and that's what's caused that, maybe he shouldn't be playing football. Maybe he should, I don't know, be getting some help. That's my whole thing with anytime somebody brings up mental health with like AB, anybody like this is like, well, okay, if you're going to use the mental health thing, you should probably not be playing football and seeking help.
Right.
That's true. And to me, I agree with all that. I think his is an anger management issue. Which is not necessarily mental illness. That is just an issue. And he said in the interview, which was good news, that he's now got a support group around him that when he starts to feel that way, he's got people to turn to, right? At the end of the day, though, he has to turn to them. You can't get help if you don't ask for help. So for his sake, for the Raiders' sake, and for his family's sake.
And all the other people out there.
And for those of us who live in Las Vegas, because now he lives here, we hope that he finds that. All right. Good conversation, guys. We're going to step aside when we come back. We're going to talk about the Raiders after 3 games, where they're at, what concerns you might have for this team, and the such. We're going to get into that right after the break. You're listening to The Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Meet the boys in blue.
Well hit on it.
Giants this morning at 11 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
This is Mark Bedane, president of the Raiders. You're listening to Silver and Black Today.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today. Here on CBS Sports Radio. Hope that's getting you fired up, Raider Nation, as you get ready for kickoff coming up here in just a little while.
Gets me fired up every time.
That's right. We are your official pregame show. Well, unofficial pregame show, I should say.
Official and unofficial.
But we're here for you as it's been a long week, guys, when it comes to Raider Nation, particularly on Twitter, where so many people now live when it comes to talking football. Calls to fire Mike Mayock and John Gruden were out there.
Ouch.
Granted, not a ton, but they were. Lots of anger, frustration, yet again, with quarterback Derek Carr. Here's the question I'm going to ask to our distinguished panel of gentlemen. I use the term loosely. How concerned should fans be, guys? I mean, when you look at this Raiders team, they lost against a better Chiefs team. Mm-hmm. They beat the Broncos, who are just not very good. Then they lost to the Chiefs, and then they lose to the Vikings on the road to a really stout defense. They didn't play well themselves, so it's not surprising. To go beat the Vikings was going to be tough anyway. My point here is I saw them at 1-2. Maybe they could sneak, I thought, a win against the Chiefs. I doubted it, but there was a chance, a home game. But the Chiefs are just too good. So if you look at this, is this surprising? Why are people surprised?
Well, I mean, it's always about expectations. You know, if you thought this was an 8 or 9, 10-win team.
Oh, and there are people out there who thought so.
That did, yeah. But, I mean, if you thought that, yeah, you might. But I always thought they were a 5-win team at best. This is about what I was expecting. You know, I was hoping that the offense and the defense would be a little better. But you look at the injuries and everything to start off the season. You're not getting everybody out there. You're not getting a rhythm yet. So this is, I mean, like you just said, if you expected them to be anything but 1-2 right now, you know, you may have had just a little too much, you know, aspirations for this team. The big thing is, what's the team going to be like at week 8?
Right.
You know, is it a 1-7 team and everything heading down? Is it a 3-5 or what?
Yeah, I think we kind of had it at a glance when we were looking at the schedule. This first quarter, we thought, okay, but with Andrew Luck being out, maybe there's a possibility we get the Colts game. But in all actuality, we figured they were going to win the first one, lose the next 5 maybe, which it's hard to say. You definitely don't want to see that. But we talked about it, and I felt like most people were on board with the rebuild, and they knew it was going to be that kind of a year. We were leaning on a lot of first and second-year guys. And, to come out of this long 5-week trip, if we can go 1-4 and hopefully get the one today and start this first quarter 2-2, that would surprise some things. And you never know what could spark it, and maybe an injury down the road to the other team, or get lucky in Green Bay or the Texans game or something like that. But I think we talked about it before the season started. If anything else, we were going to be 2-5, 2-6 to start the season. So it shouldn't be a surprise. But I'm a Raider fan. I'm an eternal optimist. You come into the season after that first game, and you're like, yes, we're going undefeated this year, and we're going to win them all. And then you start losing, and then losing ugly. And these are hard places to play. We talk about today's game in the Dome, same thing with last week in Minnesota. You're going into a hostile environment. You've got to start. You got to get that crowd out, that crowd noise out. You got to get them sitting on their hands for a while, and the Raiders just didn't do it. So hopefully they'll turn it around today and get a quick score and get things going the right direction. But I don't think we thought anything they were going to be 3-0 by any means.
No, but I think optimism is one thing, but when you're ridiculously overconfident from the get-go, which I think a lot of Raider fans were, and you know what? In life, I always tell people that you can visualize success, you can visualize things and make it happen. But when things are out of your control, like you're not middle linebacker for the Raiders or you're not the quarterback, you can't make them happen. And I think that you're talking about a team that won 4 games last year, flipped over their roster again with younger players. That's why when I was respectful to all of you out there who were telling me this team was going to win 9, 10, 11 games. I'm like, are you kidding me? Well, no, not with the schedule. And by the way, I want to differentiate one thing. Travel and schedule are 2 different things. I don't think the travel, and Lincoln Kennedy is going to talk about that in a little while. it's not the travel, it's the schedule, the teams you are playing who have more talent on their roster than you do. Yep. And to me, looking at 8, 9, or 10 games win, that was not based in logic. And it's fine. Fans should be excited. Fans should be positive. Yep. I have no problem with that. But you don't give me any excuses for why it's going on. Antonio Brown, all that stuff. What a part of what happened last year led to believe that this team would be more than a 5 or 6 win season. I mean, that was with Antonio Brown. Now you take him out of the picture, and I still think they'll be at 5 games. Mo Moton, our senior NFL columnist, says 3, and he might be right. But I just don't understand the Raider Nation turning on itself again because people want to win so bad. And I think, again, the polarizing figure in all of it is not the play of the defense. It's not the lack of play calling at certain times. It's quarterback Derek Carr.
Well, quarterback always gets too much praise when it's going good, too much blame when it's going bad. That's never going to change. Your quarterback's usually the face of your franchise, so that's what you expect. But he's the one everybody's looking to because this is a make or break year for him, and it's not going well.
Yeah. Well, I'm not ready to put the blame solely on Derek Carr. I've got to give a little bit of that responsibility to Coach Gruden and Greg Olson for some, questionable play calling. With 8.5 minutes to go in that Denver game, they started running the ball. They really pulled back the offense and played, I don't want to say scared ball, but, just playing not to lose. And then same thing, Scott, to your point, you were talking about in the Chiefs game, the second half, he didn't even throw the ball, past 7 yards. When you're down 18 points, and now I know, defenses aren't going to fall for the run fake when they're up by 18, so you can't throw that home run ball every time, but at least, take some 10-yard, 12-yard shots down the field, not just these little dump-offs.
Yeah, and they didn't throw the ball past 7 yards against the Chiefs.
Right.
Whose secondary, their safeties are really good. Mm-hmm. Their corners may be the worst in football. So it's not like you were going against a defense that was shutting down your deep passing game. You didn't try.
Right. Right. And if you look at it, I mean, again, we'll talk about Derek Carr. And don't at me about Derek Carr and my criticism now, because I've been one of the most vocal defenders of Derek Carr since last year, okay? Yeah. But after week 1, you look at it, in 2019, 7 passes in the air over 20 yards, and has only attempted 15 passes over 10 yards the entire season. And then as we saw, Michael Lombardi on The Athletic wrote a piece in his weekly column. It says the Raiders are 5-14 under John Gruden, and in 3 of those 5 wins, the team has executed 10 plays over 25 yards. So that is the shared blame. It's not just Carr, although he, for whatever reason, he's not going downfield. And to the people that I've talked to that are associated with the organization or cover the organization, many believe that he's checking down too much, which was a criticism last year too, and I didn't buy too much into that. But clearly this year it's true. He's dumping the ball off. He's getting it out too soon. He's had a safer pocket. He's had good protection to give him the time to go downfield. He just hasn't. At the same time, John Gruden and Olsen are not calling plays, and if they are, he's switching them out. So again, it's a he said, she said with that kind of stuff maybe.
Well,
but there's clearly a breakdown, and this is a team breakdown. It's not one person. It's a joint effort, and that's what has to change.
Coach Gruden said a little bit in his press conference this week. He took a little bit of the responsibility for it. He said, I'm putting a lot of it on myself for not giving him the, open offense to do what he wants to do. He actually admitted that he kind of pulled the reins back a little bit on the offense. So.
Right, but here's my question to you, Chaz, is how much longer is that going to last? How much longer is John Gruden going to say me and not Derek when clearly both sides have issues? And of course you're going to back your player. Don't get me wrong. I don't advocate a coach come out and call, although he's done it with Arden Key, a younger player. I get it. But my point is that's only going to last so long. At some point, if one side is getting frustrated and one side is not living up to their end of the bargain, then you're going to see that end.
Yeah, but Gruden came out and said that after just days before throwing. He's like, well, we're calling plays. It's just not going downfield. Gruden's notorious for throwing everybody else under the bus but himself. So it rings so hollow when he says, because you can tell, oh, I'm putting this on me. You can tell he's only saying that because he's hearing the criticism about, once again, Gruden's throwing his players under the bus and not taking accountability. That was the most hollow comment I think I've heard since, like I've said it, Happy Gilmore's apology to Chubbs. I mean, that's what it's saying that to me. It's like you're not even trying with this. You're just throwing this out there.
Yeah, well, you're asking how long it's going to take. It's going to be 8 more years because that's how many more years Gruden has on his contract. So.
Very true. Okay, we are done with this, taking a look at the Raiders and what concerns we have so far. When we come back, you're going to hear our conversation with Raiders All-Pro and College Football Hall of Famer Lincoln Kennedy. It's a good one. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140.
Walk-offs.
Muncie with a fly ball to deep right center field. It is on its way.
And then the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes come in. And then last week in Minnesota, playing a very tough Minnesota defense, looked a little shocked, and they sputtered a little bit. Where do you look at this team right now? You knew young roster, a lot of changes, things were going to be up and down. What's your assessment thus far through the 3 games?
Generally, when you're in the position that we are in, you can, and a coach will probably attest to this as well, you find out what your team is made of probably after the first month of football. Usually in the past it was a preseason where you have a gauge of where you are, but since teams don't play their starters in preseason now, you're basically using that first month of football to see where you are physically, mentally, and more importantly scheme-wise, being able to utilize what the coaches are trying to teach. With that being said, you talked about the Monday night game against Denver. I came into the season thinking that Denver was going to be an average team. They were going to run the ball. They were going to play defense. That's sort of been their model and what they've lived up to. And the Raiders were able to beat them by having some well-orchestrated preparation and offensive drives, especially, but the defense also rose up to the occasion. So that was very empowering to see and good to see. But for the most part, when you go up against the following 2 weeks of Kansas City and Minnesota, you're talking about 2 of the better teams in the National Football League. That a lot of people, including myself, definitely had playoff bound, whether Super Bowl bound, and like in Kansas City Chiefs, a lot of people AFC. So it's really an unfair gauge. You're talking about a young roster that's stacked up against some experience, some speed, and more importantly, like when you talk about Patrick Mahomes, just what else can you say? I hold my breath every time I watch him. With that being said, it's still early, but I think the Raider Nation is optimistic where they want their team to be successful all the time, but it's not necessarily realistic. And there are times where the way I approach it and what I do with my commentary is I call it like I see it. This is a young team that still has holes, even though they revamped the roster. There have been certain situations that have sort of put them behind the 8 ball, if you will. The whole thing with the receiving core with Antonio Brown. They had their hopes set high on him being a part of the offense. Now without him, yes, they've got to move on, but they did think they had that whole field. So you can imagine if you're thinking you're going to get your starting quarterback back and then all of a sudden he goes down the first week with an injury, i.e. Jacksonville, how much of a setback this can be because you didn't plan for it. So with that being said, the assessment is still out on what this team is. And it's a great test today to go up to Indianapolis because here to me is an average team. But still, like every other team's got some good players. So if they're able to, get a win here against Indianapolis before they go overseas to the pond and play the Bears, that's a confidence builder in the right direction.
Again, we're talking to Lincoln Kennedy, former Raider great and current broadcaster for the team. And you see all the games, Lincoln. That's why I think your assessment and how you keep it real with folks, because being a former Raider, always a Raider, right? You still are honest with people. And when you look at the offensive line where you used to play, this offensive line at times has looked very, very good, especially with 2 starters out. Of course, they got Richie Incognito back last week, but they've done well. They struggled a little bit in Minnesota, more so because of that defense. But what do you see on that offensive line that you like, and where do they really need to do some more work?
Well, in order for offensive lines to be successful, you have to play together. You can't have one guy on the bench, one guy on IR, or, one guy suspended. You can't have that. You got to have them play together, and you have to have them play full speed. They have to learn the nonverbal communication way that your teammates are going to go before you can work as one. With that being said, they haven't been collectively together for some time. When you talk about the suspension and Incognito, the first 2 games, I think they did a fairly decent job with the replacements of Levy and Evan Good to be in there to be able to hold the point, if you will. But now we get into the grind. And they've got to play together. It's just going to take some time. It'll probably take another month once you get Gabe Jackson back, whenever that is, to really assess how this line is going to gel. In the interim, you've got Incognito's getting back into the fold, but you also got Trent Brown, who's a little banged up over the last couple of weeks. You got to have everybody together, and that's the hardest thing about offensive line play. But the turnoff, the other side of it is when you get those guys together, and once they learn one another full speed, they can be an awesome weapon.
Well, and of course, back in the spotlight again is Derek Carr, and I get a lot of flack for defending Derek, but at the same time, started off Denver, looked like a guy I thought possessed. He looked really focused. Last few games, I think, in my view, he's overthinking a little bit, trying to maybe complicate things. What have you seen from him week 1 versus week 2 and 3?
Well, I agree with you. I do think he overthinks things. I think that when Gruden first came to the team, he looked at Derek Carr and he says, look, I got a quarterback who's smart, loves football, can make any throw on the football field. And that's a great thing to have, because that's exactly what you want out of your franchise quarterback. But while Gruden empowered Derek with the offense, there are times where Derek just tries to get a little too creative. And he tries to just be a little bit too smart. And there have been many times where I've watched Gruden's mouth from the TV copy, just run the play, just run, what did you see here? So with that being said, the last couple of weeks, I think what we're dealing with is, one, Derek needs to show a little bit more patience in the pocket, allow things to develop, and he's still worried about he's going to be hit. He's a little skittish. So there are times where he'll go through, instead of a 3-man progression, looks like a 1-man progression, he's doing a check down. You're not giving the offense time to develop. So it's a work in progress. You also have to take in consideration this tandem of receivers that he's dealing with, from Nelson to Grant. As I mentioned, not having Antonio Brown and Keelan Dawson there is a thing that they've been trying to do, as well as Tyrell Williams, and just get a balance to their offense and to their play calling, and more importantly, their execution. But it starts with Derek. And he's got to be able to make those throws. Now, last week in Minnesota, there were a number of times where he was not accurate. And you can't have that as your franchise quarterback. I mean, you don't pay him top dollars to throw balls overhead, the interceptions, or try to create plays that aren't there and stuff like that. But this is a process, and we're still in the first month of football. We'll see where we are, but I do really think, as far as Derek's concerned, he needs to learn a little bit more patience, have a little bit more patience with the offense, and more importantly, don't try to overthink things.
Now, if we switch the side of the ball to the defense, obviously there's injuries there, of course. Last week, a bunch of guys got banged up, and you have a very young defensive front. At times, they've shown promise. Of course, the sack numbers are in a good spot compared to last year. But what do you see there? Losing Jonathan Abram, obviously huge in the defensive backfield, but they need depth, so that's going to take some more time. But what do you like there, and what do you think is going to be trouble for them going down the line?
Well, I really like Vontaze Burfict. I really like him at the middle linebacker spot, because bringing him to the team did two things. One, it gave Paul Gunther a defensive player who knows his defensive system and can implement it out there full speed. Don't have to go through the learning curve. More importantly, it freed up Tahir Whitehead to be the Roman type of linebacker that he is. The production that you're seeing out of the defensive front is really good. I like the rotation they have, especially at defensive tackle spot. I'm waiting to see Arden Key come into his own. But I do like what they did against the run within the first 3 weeks. I know you saw some breakdown last week against Minnesota, but that's going to happen with the wear and tear and the score being what it is. What this front four has got to learn, and he's still trying, Paul Gunther's trying to develop him, a system that can generate pressure with their front four, because that's every defensive coordinator's dream. And they're not there yet consistently, but they're working their way there.
Now, lastly on football, this schedule, okay, so you can't use an excuse, but as an NFL player who had to travel for your entire career, talk about how brutal this is, this stretch, being away from home and all that, especially when you're banged up, you got young guys. Is it better for the team to maybe be on the road to gel together, or is it a significant challenge as we all think it is?
Well, I mean, what's different is that the manner in which they travel. I mean, we traveled first class back in my day, so it's hard to be critical of that. But when you talk about having to go to London for a game, I know that's a little bit of a trip. I get that, especially coming from Oakland. But you're staying at a country club. I mean, come on now. And it's hard for me to sit there and say, boo-hoo about the schedule. One, they don't practice in pads. They don't hit half as much as we used to do, right? So I understand you want the comforts of home. But it's not like you're staying in a Motel 6. You know what I mean? You're staying in the premier places. So I'm not feeling too sorry for them. I feel, not team-wise, I feel more sorry for the fans, because that's, the Raider Nation not being able to see their team for a month. That's a big-time withdrawal. You know how you feel in the off-season when you don't have football. Try taking your home team away for a month and some change, and you can't see them, you can't go to the game, you can't be a part of the atmosphere. So I feel more for the fans than I do the players.
All right, well, what we're here also to talk about today is the amazing charity work, of course. The Raiders Foundation and community leaders are joining together for a charity poker tournament on Thursday, October 24th at 5:30 p.m. at the Sterling Club. Guests will enjoy an interactive evening of poker, food, cocktails with the Raiders alumni and team personnel. Hosted by the Raiders Foundation, the tournament will support local nonprofit Nevada Youth Football League. To commit today, you can also get in touch with them and become a sponsor. That's what you need to do, RaidersFoundation.org. And Lincoln, this is good. So are you good at poker? Are you going to be out there? Are you ready to put some money on the line to help these kids play youth football?
Let me answer the latter questions first. Yes, I will help. I will have some money to support the cause. I will be there, and I'm not going to say whether or not I'm good at poker, because as a true poker player, you never show your hand. So, but I do know how to play the game.
So then we know they're there. But this, as a player, as an alumni, what the Raiders are doing in this Las Vegas community, what they started doing, I mean, almost 2 years ago, right? And I've been to a lot of the events with, God rest his soul, Cliff Branch and a bunch of the other guys. what an NFL team means to community outside of football is really significant.
Yeah, a lot of things that are done behind the scenes because it's not necessarily done for notoriety, but it does have an influence and it matters to the community. More importantly, it matters to the organization. So the Raiders and the Raiders alumni and the foundation have always tried to put a nice footprint in where we're going to be laying our heads, calling our home. And that's why, Las Vegas is no different. As you make the transition from Oakland to Las Vegas, you want to show that family is important. And that's one of the things the Raiders organization have always proclaimed. And once a Raider, always a Raider. It's going to be no different whether you're a part of the Raider Nation or Raider family. We all want to show the importance of value and the reason why we care so much about you.
Also joining us today, Steve Grammis from the Nevada Youth Football League. And Stephen, also a member of Metro. Thank you for protecting our community. Talk about the fact that the Raiders are here helping you raise money. Playing football for kids, for a lot of families, is not affordable. I mean, it takes some effort. It takes some help. You guys have to pay fees for everything from referees to insurance to fields. Talk about what this fundraiser is going to mean for you and the organization.
So, of course, with the Raiders coming to town, we know they have a ton of things on their plate. The move, the personnel, everything like that. And for them to be a part of our group really means a lot to us. What it's going to do for our kids is probably bigger than I could have ever imagined. We have a goal, and our goal is to make it so that kids don't have to pay to play in our league at all. My partner and I do everything we can in our personal lives to try and put money into the account so that these kids, we can make that dream a reality. But we want to be one of the best leagues in the country and start a model that maybe other people start using. A lot of nonprofits across the country still have the ability for people to pay this person and pay that person, and we're trying not to do that at all. What we're trying to do is provide a great experience for these kids. This season, this poker tournament is going to help with the purchase of equipment that we have made. We purchased about $45,000 worth of brand new equipment, and what we did with the equipment was not give it to them in the pretense that they're going to give it back. We gave it to them and told them to keep it. So we wanted to give them safe, new equipment for
in that Super Bowl. What do you tell them today about this team and how they should feel going into the rest of the season?
It's been my experience in dealing with the fans, and it doesn't matter what sport or what team. Fans are incredibly fickle. They're on top of it when everything's going well, and sometimes they sink to the lowest of lows when it's not going as well. But a true fan is going to stay regardless. So the thing is that and you've seen this in the 3 games that they played so far. Even when the score was out of reach, you still saw a level of fight. So if you're a fan of this team, you can respect that. Yeah, they're going to have some growing pains. You didn't expect them to go undefeated, or you weren't being realistic. You would have liked it to, but it's good. It's not being. Let's be realistic. But at the same point, you just want to see they're competitive, and you want to see that it's a competitiveness to where it's heading in the right direction. I think you see that. And again, we still have a couple games to go and stuff like this. It's going to be a big test with the road because everybody wants to talk about it, so it gets ingrained. But everyone that you play against hates the Raiders. And so it doesn't matter what team or what division, they're always going to give you your best shot. And we're playing against some good teams. In the last 2 weeks, 2 teams that are projected to be in a playoff race. Indianapolis came. A lot of people had them hyped even before Andrew Luck retired, especially before Andrew Luck retired. But the Chicago Bears, you go down the list, everyone is going to be ready for the Raiders. I think they'll be better than they were last year. And since we're in a performance-based business, you measure that by wins and losses. So I'm thinking I still think they can get to 8-8. And once you're at that point or close to that, get that 8th win, you might win one or get one here, make yourself 9-7 or something like that. The possibility of getting in a wild card, who knows?
Lincoln, we'll see you in London. Thanks for spending the time today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, Lincoln Kennedy here on the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio. We're going to step aside. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Las Vegas, This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Thanks to Lincoln Kennedy for joining us. And guys, Lincoln tells it like it is, right? I mean, he doesn't mince words. And as I had some folks in our social chat, by the way, we are streaming live on video to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Periscope. So everywhere you want to see us, we're there. Or if you don't want to see us, you don't have to. But nonetheless, by the way, I'm gonna use this as a cheap plug. I got to do this real quick. The posters for our London trip. By the way, yes, we will be in London next week. I'm holding this up on video. This is our cool vintage show poster, which you can see here. You can only buy this for a few more days. Go check it out. We will tweet out the link, but it's pretty cool. I've had a lot of people request it, and we've sold a bunch of them, and so make sure you get yours. But guys, Lincoln Kennedy, one more time. It would be helpful if I put up the image of the poster instead of the three of us. Anyway, there's the poster. Go order it. If you forget the link or don't find it, I'll help you later. But guys, Lincoln Kennedy talking about this team and really, I think diplomatically saying, look, there's not a lot of excuses here. I mean, other than they don't have enough people yet, which he was clear about. And then the same thing we were talking about with Derek Carr before, and some folks in our chat saying that we're being too critical of Derek Carr clearly don't listen to the show enough or just have their head in a cloud, because that is not true. But in this case, Lincoln Kennedy says, look, he agreed with me and said, yeah, he's thinking too much. You guys agree with that? Is it thinking too much? Is it fear? What is it?
I think it's all the above. Because, like, when he was coming out in the draft, the biggest problem he had was he would get happy feet anytime the pocket got a little dirty. And you're starting to see that again this year, to where he tries to, rush his progressions. He tries to do everything instead of just sitting back and trying to make the throw.
Yeah. Well, and when he has done what I mean, week one, okay, we got to go back to week one because he looked good there. There was no happy feet. There was good protection, right, Kelly? And it worked. Now, wasn't a great defense he was playing either. They had a good front, but that's about it.
Well, but that's the thing, though. Denver's defense isn't bad.
Right.
They've got one of the best corners in football in Harris Jr. They've got two of the best pass rushers in Chubb and Miller, and the offensive line just kept him clean the whole game.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about, they were also up for that game, and that's why everybody looks so good. But he admitted this week, Derek Carr said, that he's trying to do too much. And so he knows that maybe he's going to change it today. We'll see a new side.
But it was good to hear him say that, although I don't think he's trying to do too much. I mean, it's the way he came out. I think he doesn't do enough because he thinks too much. So he ends up to the point about not throwing the ball downfield and attacking the defense. So hopefully that'll change pretty quickly, and that'll happen. But, hey, we're going to step aside for the top of the hour sports update here on Silver and Black Today. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Kevin Bowen of 107.5 The Fan in Indianapolis. We're going to preview the Colts and the Raiders coming up here in just about an hour. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. The nation and the league arrive in Las Vegas in 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. We're going to shift our gear from what happened last week in the Raiders' loss to the Vikings and the state of the team to talk about this week and their matchup with the Indianapolis Colts coming up in about 56 minutes here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And to do that, we are bringing in on our attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line, Kevin Bowen of 107 The Fan in Indianapolis. He covers the team up there. And Kevin, listen, this team coming in, the Colts, to take on the Raiders, who are reeling in their own way. A lot of injuries. Of course, we know Darius Leonard on the defense. Tyquan Lewis is out. Malik Hooker, of course, all impact players for the Colts. And now we also know T.Y. Hilton on the offense will be out as he is inactive today. Talk about the state of this team coming in as they get ready to face the Raiders in just about an hour.
Yeah, it's by far the most banged up this team has been all season long. When you look at that list, Leonard, Hooker, Hilton, that's 3 of your top 5 or 6 players right there. The middle of your defense with Leonard and Hooker, those 2 guys are really the main playmakers for this defense, especially a linebacker and on the back end as well. And T.Y. Hilton, we know full well the type of player he's been over his career and just the sort of attention he commands. Last year in the meeting with Oakland, he only had 1 catch, but he commands a lot of attention that can open up things for the tight end scoring 3 touchdowns last year. Marlon Mack having a huge day as well. So big losses for sure, and the Colts' depth will be tested with a lot of rookies playing significant minutes today.
Yeah, and obviously the Raiders having their own issues, and they sort of look at this as maybe their most winnable game over the next stretch of this massive road trip that they're in. But if you look at the Colts, of course, the surprise retirement, or at least for some, the surprise retirement of the quarterback, and of course they come in with, Andrew Luck being gone. That's a huge shock in itself. So Jacoby Brissett takes that ascension to starter. He starts in a position, Kevin, with, to me, the best offensive line, especially when it comes to pass protection in the league with the Colts. Talk about how he's done not only on the field, we see the numbers, but how he's taken charge of that team and how it's worked out from a culture standpoint.
Yeah, he should be commended for how he's handled everything. Can you imagine just the roller coaster of emotions he had, from Andrew Luck telling him that he was retiring to getting a new contract, becoming the franchise quarterback, and a whirlwind like none other for Jacoby Brissett. But as you said, the numbers have been very impressive. With or without Andrew Luck, the Colts probably would have taken 2-1 after the first 3 games of the season. In the first 2 weeks, it was kind of, you could maybe label it more in the game managing type of role, but certainly last week he was elite against the Falcons. He had a big day, over 300 yards and a couple touchdowns, and his teammates always spoke very highly of Jacoby, and he was always, I think, a fan favorite within that locker room. But, it's one thing to be that as the backup quarterback. It's another to go out there and deliver under center. And he's done that through the first 3 weeks. The offense has not been the weak link at all. It's been more so the defense. So a very, very commendable performance here in the first kind of month of the season for Jacoby Brissett.
Again, we're talking to Kevin Bowen from 107.5 The Fan in Indianapolis.
Hey, Kevin. It's Kelly Kreiner here. We mentioned T.Y. Hilton's out, so who is it going to be that's going to have to step up for the Colts today? Is this going to be a just pound Marlon Mack all day? Is it going to be a Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron, Mo Alley Cox kind of triumvirate to take over, or do you see one of the other wide receivers actually stepping up to be somebody to take Hilton's place?
Yeah, really good question. I think the focus is still pound Marlon Mack. That's what they've done all season long, rely on one of the best offensive lines in football. And then I do think they will utilize their deep tight end group. I mentioned earlier how the trio of Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron, and Mo Alley Cox all had touchdowns in last year's meeting out there in Oakland. So I think that's something to where they will play to their strengths, which is running the football and relying on those tight ends. As far as wideout, 2 intriguing names that I'm kind of looking for. Paris Campbell, their second-round draft pick out of Ohio State, who's a speed demon, ran 4.31 at the Combine here at Lucas Oil Stadium back in February. And then Deion Kane, who's a second-year wideout out of Clemson, who they're very intrigued with as well. So those two guys, have had a bit quiet starts to the season, but no T.Y. Hilton, no Devin Funchess as well. So the top two wideouts are out for the Colts. I think if they do look to that wideout group, those two young guys are a couple names to watch.
Interesting stuff. Okay, Kevin, the Colts, to me, one of the things that impresses me so much with them and how they're playing this year and even going back to last year under Frank Reich is they're incredibly disciplined, yet they're aggressive. Talk about that coaching staff and how that has led to where this team is now in their chase to get back into the championship hunt.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, they are definitely extremely aggressive with their play caller, Frank Reich. I would say one of the more aggressive play callers in the NFL, and kind of instills a belief into that football team that, they're going to go for a lot of fourth downs. When it's 4-minute offense late in a game, they're not running the football. They're playing to win and keep that ball and kind of end the game with the ball in their hands. Yet they've had this discipline to them through the first few weeks that they rank right up there with anybody in the NFL in least penalties committed and least penalty yardage committed. Last week against the Falcons, Atlanta had 16 penalties for 128 yards.
Wow.
And 7 of those 16 penalties went for first downs. It was about, 80 yards in penalties favored the Colts. They had 4 for 38 or something. That's a huge, huge margin when you look at a 3-point game at the end. And the Colts have played extremely close games all 3 weeks. They've gone down to the final possession, and the Colts have averaged about 2 or 3 first downs more than their opponent via just strictly penalties. So I think it's been a huge element to their success so far early in the season, and something that Frank Reich has really harped on.
Yeah, it's Kelly again, Kevin. We talked about with Darius Leonard being out and Malik Hooker being out. Waller's been the main kind of offensive weapon for the Raiders. Do you see him being an issue for that Colts linebacker secondary core with everybody kind of? It's not, you don't have a piecemeal group out there, but you're missing your 2 main components.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably a top the Colts list in terms of concerns today. Austin Hooper, the tight end for the Falcons, had a huge game against Indianapolis last week. The Colts have struggled for now, years in defending tight ends, to be frank. More so Leonard than Hooker. Hooker's absence, he is that center field. He's that last line of defense. He allows you to do some single high stuff. Now their safeties are more kind of box guys. So I think, maybe big plays will be something to watch with Hooker's absence. But I would say the Leonard injury is more where Waller comes into play because, he's a guy that obviously had a huge game last week. And without Leonard, that is more the middle of the field, in that 5 to 10 yard area where those linebackers are so key in a cover 2 scheme. And the Colts were exposed a bit last week there, not only with tight ends, but also with trying to stop the run in the first half as well. So that'll be a very, very important matchup now. Granted, as you guys know, Oakland doesn't have the same sort of receiving talent around their tight end like Atlanta did last week with Cooper. But still, that is a concern with the Colts. Starting a rookie in place of Leonard, starting a rookie in place of Hooker, and maybe even a rookie corner as well when they go to their nickel with Rocky Esteen.
Again, we're talking to Kevin Bowen from 107.5 The Fan in Indianapolis. He's live from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. And Kevin, I want to revisit that offensive line because I'll tell you what, I was a huge fan of the line last year, how they played, how they protected Andrew Luck when he came back from his injury. And then we talked earlier about Jacoby Brissett and how what it's meant to him to have that line established before he stepped into the role of franchise quarterback. But talk about that group and really what it means to that unit overall and to the team from a mentality standpoint. Clearly, they're talented and they're doing so well. And I think sometimes forgotten, because Marlon Mack is there, they're always lauded for how great they are in pass protection, but that also opens up the run, and they do such a great job there as well.
Yeah, they do. And, Chris Ballard, their general manager, has been there 3 seasons. His first year is 2017. And then the Colts allowed the most sacks in the NFL that year. Jacoby Brissett was starting for Andrew Luck that season. He was sacked 10 times in a game. It was abysmal what that offensive line did that season and really had done for so much of Andrew Luck's career. It was an issue. It was a constant revolving door across the line, really outside of left tackle. And so Ballard in 2018 really committed to addressing that and spent the 6th overall pick and then spent the 37th overall pick on 2 linemen, in Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith. Both those guys start. Obviously, Nelson has kind of been one of the few offensive linemen maybe ever to play the game of football that seemingly has a weekly highlight reel of blocks and noises that he makes during a game. And Nelson has really changed the mentality of that line. And they have 4 top 40 picks on that line. And it's a lot of draft capital invested there. They found this starting 5 probably about mid-October last year. And since then, they've stuck with it. And I think today will be like the 10th or 11th straight game that group has played together. And the Colts have won, regular season games. They've won like 11 of their last 13. So, I mean, it's a big reason why they've been able to get on this run, which, again, for the first 7 years of the Andrew Luck era, it was a huge, huge issue. And it definitely hasn't been an issue here in the past kind of, 15 games or so.
Well, Kevin, we certainly appreciate you taking your time today, as busy as you are with the game fast approaching. But tell us, what you think the Colts will end up winning this at home despite the lack of some of their top guys being out there? What do you think happens?
Yeah, I think they will. I've probably come back a little bit on my stance. Early in the week, I probably thought Colts by a couple scores. I don't necessarily think that right now. But like I said, the healthy parts of this team are their strengths, and that's the offensive line, running back, and tight end. And so I think with them being healthy there, and Oakland, I guess, a little bit banged up with a few surprised inactives, I think that's something where the Colts will get an early lead and kind of play from ahead all game long, which they tried to do last week. Atlanta played catch-up late. I don't think Oakland will be able to do that here today.
Well, Kevin, we appreciate the time, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on.
All right,
Thanks,
Kevin Bowen from the Fan 107.5 in Indianapolis, giving us a preview of what the Raiders will face here in about 45 minutes in Indianapolis as they head off against the Colts. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Raiders versus Colts, our keys to the game, what to watch for as we roll on. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
The Giants. This morning at 11 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
How you doing? This is Charlie Garner, and you're listening to Silver and Black Today. Stay tuned.
All right, Charlie Garner bringing us back in. Haven't heard that one in a while. That was pretty cool. We have all these rejoins, as we call them. And you never know who's going to pop up there. We had Mark Bedane earlier. Now we have Charlie Garner. There's some other ones in there. I got to talk to our executive producer, Mark Bonilla. I think there's some that he hasn't put in the system yet that I probably need to resend them. But anyway.
That Charlie Garner one, he says, stay tuned. We should be playing that when we're going out, not coming back in. Right?
Oh, my gosh.
I'm just saying.
Chaz gets to take an engineering course. No. Good point. It's a great point. It is really a good point. Okay. We are back here. We're talking about the Raiders and the Colts coming up here in about 41 minutes and 40 seconds, to be exact. Yes, from outside. So we want to jump in. Ladies' underwear. Sorry. If you get the reference to.
Gee, if you don't, that's just weird. That's great.
It is. You're right. But I think most people do because they're sports fans. Okay. Let's talk about this game today, guys. We look at the Raiders and Colts. As our own Mo Moten said this week, he feels this is a must-win for this team or it's a downward spiral. I agree with him from the perspective of I do not see them winning a game again on this road trip if they don't win today. That's just my take. And there's a lot happening here. They need confidence. They need to get their offense going. Their defense, we knew the weaknesses of the defense, and we're seeing those come to light, but they need to play better. We saw good pressure in weeks 1 and 2, didn't see it last week. They now are playing one of the best offensive line in the league, and now they have to get pressure again there, too. They need to stop Marlon Mack. They're thin at linebacker because, Kelly, we know the Raiders don't need linebackers. But nonetheless, when you look at this game, and Chaz, I'll start with you on it. When you look at this game, what one thing do you believe, and there's several, I know, but what one thing is the key for the Raiders to get off to a start and to really take this game home and win one on the road before they head to London?
Yeah, you just said it, to get off to a fast start. Those first two games in Denver, they were up, 14-0 at halftime, 10-0 after the first quarter against Kansas City. And then last week, same as this week, you're going into that environment. It's a dome. It's great home crowd. If you can get off to a nice 7-0, 10-3 start, keep the crowd out of it a little bit, that'll do a lot going forward. And, you talked about this whole road trip. You kind of look at it, you think they're going to get a win somewhere. Why not today? Today, with Indianapolis' injuries, this could be the day, to start it off right.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And then, Kelly, when you look at this, too, I think fast start – and that's the one thing we saw today, or I should say this week reported as well, was that the Raiders are so good when they script that first drive, and then after that is when they have trouble. Getting the offense to a fast start is important, yes, but what else do you need to see out of that offense for them to stay in this game? Because Indianapolis is going to run the ball. They're going to pound the rock. They're going to do really well with that line. They'll be able to pass, too, to the tight ends, as we talked about earlier. But what do the Raiders have to do on offense to keep up with the Colts today?
They've definitely got to avoid the 3-and-outs because this is a game where possessions, you're not going to see big explosive plays on either side, so you're going to see longer drives. Right. Time of possession in this game is going to be kind of big because it's not going to be like the Chiefs game where they can score in 50 seconds. You're going to see you need longer drives. You need to, you need touchdowns, not field goals. Yeah. This isn't going to be a high-scoring game, but like I said, there's not going to be a whole lot of possessions. It's going to be just chunk. It's going to be, 5 yards, 7 yards, 10 yards. Yep. You're not going to see. I don't think you're going to see the big explosive plays. No. So it's just you have to consistently string together drives.
We need to see a lot of third and shorts. Keep those drives going. A lot of 10, 12-play drives. Chew up a lot of clock. 8-minute drives. Derek Carr was talking about the last couple of weeks moving the ball, but they haven't been able to finish the drives. So let's just see him, maybe finish, at least get, field goals, get some points out of these drives, and that'll go a long way. And keep the penalties down, too. Like what Kevin talked about last week with Indianapolis, Atlanta had so many penalties, they gave them that many first downs just off of penalties. So we really need to be disciplined and keep the penalties to a minimum.
And to me, the issue with that, those unforced penalties, that have happened both offensively and defensively have just killed the Raiders, and they got to score 6, right? I mean, they got to get down. They have not been on the side of the 50 more than a few times. I mean, it's been horrendous.
Field position's big.
The field position, to Kelly's point, is big, and I think two things. They need to, on offense, Derek Carr needs to have another breakout game today. He just does. He needs to take leadership there. He needs to drive the ball downfield when he can, and not be too happy feet in the pocket. He needs to stay in there, find it. The other thing I think they need is Josh Jacobs needs to get on track. They need to target him more. He was sick last week. People, why'd you only give the ball 10 times? Well, he was ill. He was coming off a week where he lost 10 pounds, so he wasn't 100%. Maybe shouldn't even played, but they played him anyway. So this week, you got to give him the ball. Then I think they have to target him as a receiver because they have Terrell Williams. J.J. Nelson's out. You don't know what you're getting with the young guys, and then you have Waller. So you need someone else who can sneak out of that backfield and leak out so that Carr can find him, especially when he does have to check down, which hopefully isn't too much. But to me, that offense has to click today for them to have. If not, you're going to see another 28-7 halftime, and the game's going to be over.
Yeah, the attention that the Colts are going to have to put on Waller, like you said, you should be able to sneak him out of the backfield, get a wheel route going, get a screen. Just do something early on to set that up to maybe soften up that middle, because if they see that you might be going to the running back a little bit, it might open up Waller more. It'll open up that middle more. It's like you got to come up with you have to come up with something, because Waller's obviously Derek Carr has eyes for him. Derek Carr loves throwing him the ball. So, he's your number one target if you're the Colts defense now. It's not Ty Williams. It's not Josh Jacobs. It's you're taking out the tight end. You slow this offense.
I would like to see a lot more Josh Jacobs. We need to have good balance, and that starts with running the ball. Like you said, if you can make a couple of nice passes downfield, that'll open it up for Jacobs. You get that nice balance going down the field, and anything can happen.
Well, and to me, the defense too. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the challenges on defense, because Here I've done this massive sell job on how good the Colts offensive line is, and they are. And this is a week after the Raiders could not muster any pass rush against the Vikings. What are they going to do? I mean, they have to get Jacoby Brissett out of the pocket. They have to pressure him, and because they're thin at linebacker, they're thin at defensive back, so they need to put some pressure there. What are they going to do? I mean, Kelly, I think this is probably going to be the biggest obstacle for them today is just matchups.
I don't think you're going to be able to get any pass rush on Brissett, so you're going to have to concentrate more on coverage, more on trying to stop the run, because is
that possible? For this team?
For this team, I don't know. That's the whole problem with it. It's like I just don't see them getting any kind of pass rush at all. I think that the Colts offensive line just dominates today, which is why I think it's just going to be the Marlon Mack show, to where he's just going to be pounding the football. So, I mean, if you're only giving up 2 or 3, per rush or things like that, put them in a position where they have to throw on like third down. You're going to have to try and get them in longer yardage, but I just don't see the pressure coming today.
Yeah, Gunther's really going to have to dial up some nice schemes today to keep these guys off balance. Tahir Whitehead had an incredible game last week. He lined up in multiple positions. He played his heart out. It's just these guys, it's not a complete – last week's game wasn't a complete failure. I saw a lot of progress, and I don't want to keep beating that drum. I just like to see him get better.
I think it was a complete failure, because
when you're down 21-0. You're right. Everything after that,
then you come back and make it 21.
It's fundamental, because it's already out of reach.
Yeah. Well, but I think on defense, that they did not pressure the quarterback last week either, which is what gave them some of the fits. They were thin at linebacker too, because they got injured. I get that, but to me, Chaz, it's going to be a tough game. I don't think. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's impossible, and I'll give my pick later, and you'll be surprised by it. But at the same time, to me, this team just has to show progress, right? And I know we've been talking about, is this a tailspin if they lose today? And many folks agree it is if they do lose. At the same time, though, as I've said all season, if you see progress, if you see the team last week, I thought they took a big step backward.
Well, I mean, I didn't think it was a complete failure. I saw some progress. We need to have better communication. in the nonverbal communication. It gets loud in those domes, and if they're not, it's going to take a total team effort, especially on defense, like what Kelly's talking about. These guys all need to be head on a swivel, ready to go, and hopefully, like I said, Gunther's got something dialed up for him. Bring a little pressure.
Indeed. Well, that concludes this discussion, and Chaz is right. Not everything is a complete failure. That's why he told me to buy Enron stock. But no, just kidding. People are like, Enron stock? What are you talking about? Yeah. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, it's everyone's favorite segment of the show, Kelly's Corner. Right when we come back, you're listening to the Silver and Black today here only on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Meet the boys in blue.
Broadcasting live from the Finley Chevrolet Sports Studios, home of the located on the 215 Beltway between Rainbow and Jones. Finley Chevrolet, Nevada's #1 Chevrolet volume dealer. Find new roads.
Those sounds can be overwhelming. Digital is everywhere. You know your business needs to be where the eyes are, but who do you trust? Entercom has the solution. Working with the digital team at Entercom, you'll always know where your budget is going and see results in real time. Being a Google Premier partner enables Entercom to maximize your campaigns. Plus, with a full digital product suite and exclusive access to our radio.com platform, your business will have a captive audience. You're going to like that. And your return. That's a sale for you. Go to entercom.com.
Are you thinking about buying a rental property? Did you inherit a house and become an accidental landlord? Or maybe you're already a property investor. Whatever the case, you know that owning rental properties is smart, but managing them can be complicated and stressful. At Renters Warehouse, we think you deserve better. You deserve a partner to help you execute on your real estate investment strategy.
CBS Sports Radio.
You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back, Raider Nation. Week 4 of the NFL season about to be underway. The Raiders in Indianapolis today to take on the Colts in what many think is a must-win game for your Silver and Black. You're listening to Las Vegas's only all Raiders talk show here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 from the Findlay Chevrolet studio. I am Scott Gobranson, joined by Kelly Kreiner and Chaz Osborne. And this part of the show is one that people just absolutely love. They gather the family around the streaming device, no more radio. They get the family around the streaming device, and they get out some cocoa, some scones, and they say, it's time for Kelly's Corner.
All right. Well, first off, after your very timely Enron reference earlier, I will say that if you're into documentaries at all, The Smartest Guys in the Room about the fall of Enron is a fabulous documentary. I highly recommend you go watch it if you haven't seen it. Even if you don't like documentaries, it's just so well put together. It's such an interesting topic. It's The Smartest Guys in the Room. Go see it. Okay, for my actual corner here, I'm watching Thursday Night Football, and I was a big proponent of them bringing in the rule to where you can challenge pass interference. You know, we saw what happened in the Saints-Rams game. You know, that was an obvious blown call. But the CFL's been doing this for years. I thought this is something the NFL should have because with it being a spot foul, it is such a big call in a game. Mm-hmm. I was unaware of the fact that they were going to put that rule in and just decide to not enforce it or change any call whatsoever, no matter how blatant or obvious it is. Right. There were 2 or 3 just blatant pass interferences that they challenged and were not overturned in the football game. What's the point of having a rule if you're not going to enforce it? You know? And you hear all this stuff about, you know, the officials are trying to do their job. The game's just faster than it ever has been. I get all that, but we have the technology to make the correct call, but you're not using it to make the correct call. I don't know if it's they don't want to overturn it to make the officials look bad. I don't know what's going on. But when 5 drunk people in a bar can sit there and obviously make a call, you're telling me one official in a booth can't make the same call? Yeah. You have the rule out there for a reason. Use it. Use it correctly.
I think it really does have to be blatant. If they're going to overturn it, it's got to be a mugging.
There was a blatant call on Thursday.
There were 2 blatant ones. You cannot in any sane way tell me that those 2 plays were not pass interference. Because last time I checked, you can't grab a jersey and or an arm, 3 yards before the ball gets to a receiver. You know, I'm not an official. I could be mistaken.
Right.
I'm not.
I think since they didn't call the first one, that's probably why they didn't call the second one, right?
Okay, we screwed up once. We'll screw up again to make it even.
Just to be consistent.
Because they were both really similar calls.
But I mean, you said you made a rule for this. You have the technology to fix it, but it doesn't matter if you don't actually apply this and fix it. It's a black eye for the sport because it's become a running joke now.
Yeah.
But you've got it's the same thing. It's like we put a man on the moon, but the best way to measure 10 yards is 2 sticks and a chain. Like the NFL's so stuck behind the technology that but this is the one that gets me. You had a team lose a chance at a Super Bowl because of an obvious blown call. You put in a rule to make sure that doesn't happen again, but you don't enforce the rule.
So you bet on Green Bay then?
But I agree with you, Kelly, because I don't understand if you're going to do. That's why I was not in favor of this rule for the regular season. I liked it for playoffs because it's like, okay, so now you're in the playoffs, and that's what happened last year. Now I know you could be in a regular season game, and because of that call, you don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that. But if you're going to have this opportunity to review pass interference calls, and you don't call pass interference calls when they're clearly there and blatant, then yes. And I think that's where the rub is. If they had done this year, as they've done, and there were challenges, and they said, yeah, I mean, the guys that they now hire to be part of broadcast teams, former referees, they were all saying, yes, that's clearly pass interference.
Right.
I don't know if it was Mike Pereira or whoever it was on Fox. He was saying this is, in any definition, this is pass interference twice. And they still didn't call it. So what does New York do? I don't know what they're doing, but it's taking away from the game. And then you're having coaches now who don't like replay per se most of the time, now having an issue with replay. You're just undermining the whole system, in my view.
That's my thing, is like, are they purposefully not making these changes, hoping coaches will stop doing it, and this thing kind of goes away on its own?
Right.
Because now you're just undermining the sport in general. You know, it's like, but that's the only thing I could come up with, because if you're that bad at your job, you get fired. It's simple. You know, I mean, unless you're Chaz, he's still here for some reason. But I mean, but like the officials were saying, oh, that's blatant pass interference. This is going to get overturned. Nope.
Well, but last week we were on this show complaining about the ridiculous number of calls of offensive holding. The NFL clearly heard that, and last week we saw a vast reduction. So does that mean, Kelly, that this week we will see more pass interference calls challenged and successful?
If there's pass interference on the play, I hope so, because that's the thing. You brought this rule in to fix obvious pass interference calls. There's always going to be hand fighting. There's always going to be a little bit in that. That's part of the game. But I'm talking about literally you see them grab a guy's arm and pull it down before the ball gets there, that you just clear as day, and they will not overturn them.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it wasn't just Thursday. It's an epidemic. And as someone who watches as much football as I do, and that annoys the crap out of me every time I see it, I've been annoyed a whole lot this season.
Was today the first time you saw the sun in a while? All that football yesterday?
No, I actually have a job, so I have to go out. I have to go out before the sun goes down. So
gets in the way of football every time.
Hey.
Okay, we have a caller who wants to sound off a little bit about the Raiders. It's a viewer that we have on YouTube a lot, and he goes by Hardcore Raider. He wants to talk about the state of the team. Hardcore Raider, you are on with the guys here on Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140. What you got for us?
Hey guys, how you doing, man? Love the show. I appreciate you guys having me on. I don't want to get off topic, but I completely agree with Kelly, and I think these referees have alternate agendas at times. I mean, Carr got hit, they don't call a flag, and then, you know, Tom Brady gets hit, and the ref's like, oh, you can't hit my Tommy boy, you know? So it's just all right, so, but as far as the team goes, I mean, you know, like all of last year, I was sticking up for this team. I really thought hate kind of divided the team. But this year, you know, I'm not going to have that same take. You know, this is the last year in Oakland, 60th year for the Oakland Raiders, 100th year in the NFL. You know, they were talking about Super Bowl and stuff and Hard Knocks. You know, the Antonio Brown thing obviously hurt us, but at the same time, like, you know, that's their decision. You know, they're the ones making these decisions. And if they made a bad decision, you know, they could have got somebody else or whatever. And same goes from the rookies, like all the way down. Like everybody, in my opinion, everybody's held accountable this year, from John Gruden to Derek Carr to every single player on that team. I mean, and I agree with you, Scott. I mean, the team's looking terrible. I mean, it's only week 3, and I know people will be like, well, we're a young team, and, you know, if you look at the teams we played, they're playoff teams or whatever, and, you know, I'll give that some merit. But at the same time, like, we're not even competing with top teams. You know, we look like a team that couldn't even beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers out of Canada, you know? I mean,
well,
and that's sad.
And Hardcore Raider, thanks for your call, man. I appreciate it. But here's the thing, too, and I agree with you. It's different if you lose games and you look and you miss a couple plays, you don't execute on a couple plays, and it costs you the game. Even when you lose, like even if the Chiefs had won by 15 points, but you executed well, it was because of a turnover here and there, a young player does something stupid, but you look all together and you look like you're getting better. I think that's the biggest problem. The thing that concerns me most is not that they're losing, because I thought they would lose. I took the under 6 games. My point is you have to look like you're making progress week in, week out. And to me, they haven't shown that, and I think that's exactly what you're saying. All right, man. Well, thank you for your call. We appreciate it. We got to move on. But, guys, I mean, that's the crux of it, right? I mean, it's lose, but lose well, if that sounds –
Yeah, I said at the beginning of the season, I have the under as well. And you can have a worse record and be a better football team. You know, the record's not the most important thing. It's making progress. It's moving forward.
When you're rebuilding, absolutely.
And they're not, in my opinion, they're not making progress. They're not moving forward. That's the problem.
Yep. No, I agree with you. We've talked about it over and over. Just got to get on the same page. No more miscommunications. No more silly penalties. Make progress. It's a young team. Each day, just get better as a player, get better as a team, and hopefully by the end of the season, you know, we'll know what we're working with going into next year.
All right, we're going to step aside before we come back to close out the show. You can call us 702-889-5978. We can sneak another call in, I think, after the break. When we come back, we're going to talk about our trip to London. Yes. God save the Queen and all that jazz. We're also going to give you our Raiders picks for today and NFL picks to go mortgage the house to. No, just kidding. We're going to give you our NFL picks.
Mortgage
You're listening
the house
to
after.
That's right. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Walk-offs.
Dodgers baseball on CBS Sports Radio 1140 is brought to you by Great American Pub and by Pro Group Management.
The law office of Michael A. Troiano is a proud supporter of all things Las Vegas, including its people, specializing in legal representation for all criminal defense matters ranging from misdemeanors to the most serious felonies. Attorney Michael Troiano provides clients with the legal strategy and professional representation needed in court. If you or a loved one find yourself in a legal situation and need a tough defense on your side, Michael Troiano can help. Call now for a free consultation, 702-843-5500, or learn more at TroianoVegasLaw.com.
Hey, Las Vegas, let's face it, banks don't lend money anymore, and payday loan companies charge too much. Nobody has you covered like the DLC with our signature loans up to $5,000 in less than 30 minutes. Really? Loan Center's been in business for more than 20 years and has over 250,000 customers for a reason. We're quick, inexpensive, safe, regulated, friendly, and have a cool jingle. Your loan company charges too much, and we can't wait to show you how easy it is at the DLC and how much you can save. Get up to $5,000 in minutes without a checking account and absolutely no collateral required like at the other companies. It's 100% free to apply, and there's no penalties if you pay off your loan early. We have over 50 locations and give you up to a year to pay back your loan.
Licensed by the Data Financial Institutions Division. Customer must meet the normal loan qualifications. To review loan qualifications, visit us at don'tbebroke.com. Certain limitations may apply. Loans are subject to approval.
A union we can count on. A union with a legacy, known for hard work and getting things done. We're the ones who built this city with pride. Our members are our family, and their well-being is our number one priority. Laborers Union Local 872. Vegas strong, union proud.
Not a lender. Offer not valid in all states or prohibited by law. Loan availability and amounts are subject to lender approval and not all consumers qualify. Terms and conditions apply. See website and lender for details.
Wait. Tell me, where'd you get that money?
Oh, man, all this money came from 33money.com, right online.
Are you saying you went to 33money.com and got all that money you needed fast?
Man, you know it. I went to 33money.com yesterday, and bam, $5 was in my account today.
Now, hold on. 33money.com helped you get $5K like that.
Yeah, man, that's right. 33money.com's lenders provide personal loans for up to $5,000 for people like you and me, even if you don't have good credit.
Man, I'm always short on cash. Can 33money.com give me the money I need fast?
If you need extra money fast, go to 33money.com. Just have a checking account and a regular source of income. Go to 33money.com and you can get the loan you need now. Regardless of your credit, go to 33money.com to get the money you need fast. Type www.33money.com directly into the address bar. That's 33money.com. Again, 33money.com. 33money.com.
Dollar Loan Center presents Holiday Habit. Tuesday, December 3rd, live at the Chelsea inside the Cosmopolitan, featuring English pop rockers, the 1975. With special guests Judah and the Lion, White Reaper, Joywave, and I Don't Know How, but They Found Me. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Holiday Habit. Featuring the 1975. produced by radio.com.
The Cowboys take on the Saints this afternoon at 5 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Bringing it home on the Silver and Black Today. Just had a kickoff in about 10 minutes in Indianapolis. Indianapolis, as I say it, as the Raiders get set to take on the Colts in Week 4 in a big game. And we are here back with you from the CBS Sports Radio studios, the Findlay Chevrolet studios. And we're going to talk a little bit about picks now. We're going to give you our Raiders picks in a minute, but we're going to start. I want to also thank Hardcore Raider for calling in as well. Good call. NFL. Okay, if we look at picks that the three of us, Kelly Kreiner, Chaz Osborne, and myself, have made, not surprising, the person who bets the most on pro football and college football and the Puppy Bowl is
ping pong.
On ping pong is Kelly Kreiner, and just want to give you an update on our records, right? So you're thinking, who am I going to bet with today? And you might want to pay attention to this then, because we'll give you the numbers. Okay. So, and Chaz is looking at his tickets, so I don't know what he's doing. But we're looking, Kelly's 3-1 on the year with picks. Chaz is 2-2. I am also 2-2. So we're kind of deadlocked, Chaz and I, for second. But Kelly clearly leads the folks here in the Silver and Black Today crew with pro betting picks. Okay, Kelly, for those out there ready to cash in, put their money down this morning, right before kickoff, who you got?
First off, let me say my pick last week where I had the under. If you have an under in a game and the first time a team touches a ball, they run that kickoff back for a touchdown, just rip that ticket out. I ripped that thing up with 4 minutes into the game and almost still cashed it. I would have had to tape it back together, which I've had to do before. Yeah. My first pick is about the chalkiest of chalk picks you can find, but it's still Dallas minus 2.5 at New Orleans. I think Ezekiel Elliott might run for 200 yards today.
Like Marlon Mack.
Well, I don't think Max will get quite that much. But and the video of Jerry Jones being on Bourbon Street late last night doesn't bother me because he ain't playing. If it'd been Zeke or Dak, I'd have felt a little bad.
Right.
I think Dallas just rolls through the Saints today. Okay. My other pick, New England, Buffalo under 42. I just think this is two very good defensive teams, and it's going to be a boring, just kind of run the ball slugfest type game.
Okay.
So I'm going for under 42.
Okay, so we have then, let me get this right. We have Kelly's got Dallas minus 2.5 and New England Buffalo take the under at 42. All right, we move on to Chaz Osborne now. Chaz.
Yep. I'm going with the Carolina Panthers. I'm really down with this Kyle Allen at quarterback. We might have a Drew Bledsoe situation coming up in Carolina later in the year. Kelly disagrees with me.
Is Cam Newton going to start a winery?
You never know what Cam Newton's going to do.
But
what cigar was he smoking, though? Did you notice?
I didn't notice.
I didn't notice.
I will say Drew Bledsoe's wine is really good, though.
Oh, yeah. There you go. All right, go on with your picks there, Chad.
And then I got the Tennessee Titans on the road and Atlanta Falcons. I just think,
what's the spread?
Marcus, Titans are getting 3.5 on my. I think Marcus Marcus Mariota hasn't done much. But they're going to go back to the old defense and run the ball, and you're going to see that first weekend Tennessee Titans come back.
Tuiasosopo, Freudian slip. I love that.
Shout out.
I love that. Man. That's nice. Okay, so we got Chaz then with the Panthers getting points and the Titans getting 3.5, right?
Yeah, Panthers getting 4.5, Titans getting 3.5.
Okay, so we got that. All right, so now for mine, I'm taking the Texans at 4.5, minus 4.5, and I'm taking, and I don't know why I keep continuing to go back to this well. I'll learn my lesson one of these days. You'll see when I give you my Raiders pick. Oakland, Indy over 45.5, 46, depending where you get it. Okay?
You just can't stay away.
The Raiders offense I think is going to click today. So that's the picks we have for Kelly, Chaz. We will tweet these out as well, but we'll keep record of that as well. Okay, guys, let's move on to the Raiders now. We look at the Raiders. We have Mo's pick in as well, but Chaz, I'm going to start with you on this one. Give me your Raiders prediction. Do you remember? You sent it to me already. In case you didn't, I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it.
I get the Raiders winning, of course. They're going to go in there. They're going to pound the ball. Josh Jacobs is going to be a lot of tight end. It's going to be a lot of long, sustained drives. It's going to be a low-scoring game, and Raiders are going to win at 23-20.
Yes, Chaz has 23-20. Mo has the Colts winning this game in a close one, 24-21. The rest of us chose the Raiders. Kelly, you also picked the Raiders.
Yes.
And tell us about why.
And I picked this before the T.Y. Hilton injury came out.
You did.
So
we all did, yes.
I hate to use the term must win because I think it's the dumbest, most overused thing ever. But if they don't win this game, they're not winning one for a long time. So, yeah, I've got 24-20 Raiders. I think it is a little lower. Well, not really low scoring, but I mean it's under. Yeah. But yeah, this is a win they need badly.
They do. All right. A very close game and a low-scoring game, to your point, Chaz. But I like the Raiders today. I feel like they need to bounce back. I think the criticisms and all that stuff for Derek Carr will play into it, and he'll have a big day and at least quiet folks, at least for a week, right? Yep. So, all right, guys, we're going to London next week. Do not forget, you can listen to this show next week. We will be coming to you directly from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. 8 hours ahead. So we're right before kickoff. You can listen to us just like you did this week and last week, right up until kickoff. We're going to bring you interviews. We'll give you a flavor of London, some of the parties, and talk to folks from around the world who are Raiders fans. So don't miss it next week. You can check out those show posters, limited edition for the next few days, but make sure you are with us next week. Kelly, Chaz, I'll see you in London.
Yes.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
You've been listening to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Check out silverandblacktoday.com. Also, download, subscribe to this show via podcast, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get your audio. For Trent Ogler, our engineer, for the rest of us, we are Silver and Black Today. We'll talk to you next time.
Dear movers and shakers, we know how you roll, and we're with you. On the